Hello everyone, this is Andres Restart, and this time we are talking about the graphics and the overall presentation of The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and how it compares to Link's Awakening. What's so different about it? Well, that's what we're getting into today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. So Link's Awakening, the remake that came out back in 2019 for Switch, is a pretty good looking top-down 2D Zelda game. And Echoes of Wisdom, 5 years later, looks to be very similar. The art style is the same, and looking across both games, a lot of things look to be pretty much the same. Very clearly, there are many assets that are taken over from Link's Awakening and are simply plopped into Echoes of Wisdom. Many of the enemies are just copied and pasted over. A lot of the textures and environments look pretty much the same, but I have seen some differences. While looking at, say, the grass, for example, to me it looks pretty much the same. But what does appear to be different are the rock walls. In Link's Awakening, all the rocks and walls look to be very clay-like, very simple. I would say they look good, and it matches the art style, but taking a look at what we see in Echoes of Wisdom, there appears to be a lot more detail. The textures look to be more advanced. And I would say the same can be said for the water. While the water effects themselves appear to be similar, when looking under the water, like the actual floor that you can see through the water, those environments look to be more detailed. And so there are areas like these throughout the overworld that do seem to have more going on. And just speaking on the overworld, in Link's Awakening, the map was smaller and it almost felt very maze-like with so many different structures and corners to navigate around. It was very tight. In Echoes of Wisdom, the map is broader, there's a lot more going on, and there's a lot more room to just move about and do different things with speed. Which actually brings me to the point of the gameplay changes. Now, you might be asking, well, gameplay changes shouldn't really be relevant to graphics or presentation, but in this case, I think it does. Just yesterday, we were talking about this cool trick where you can take a bed, and you can use a tornado to send the bed flying as you ride it throughout the air. And so what happens is that you get to see a lot more of the map very quickly. It's a visual effect that you would never see in Link's Awakening. While there were some points you could climb up a little bit in Link's Awakening, you didn't really get to see as much of the map as you do in Echoes of Wisdom. There are so many different ways to climb up and move about, and this leads to a lot more vantage points. Zelda can run on the canopies of trees throughout the game. She can scale an entire mountain wall, or, through a variety of different means, hit the vertical limit of the game. Nothing like this was possible in Link's Awakening. So the variety in terms of what you've experienced visually in Echoes of Wisdom is a lot more interesting from this perspective. And it goes beyond just what you can do with the crazy gameplay mechanics, but just the diversity of the world. There's a lot more to discover in Echoes of Wisdom. There's a lot more environments. There's a snow area, there's a lava area, there's a desert area, you have the swamplands, and so there's just a lot more variety while still having a lot of these same kind of areas and locales we saw in Link's Awakening as well. And something else that I think is very important in terms of experiencing the visuals in Echoes of Wisdom is how the camera can be moved around and how it changes. So in Echoes of Wisdom, unlike Link's Awakening, you can use the right stick to move around the camera. And so you can get an overall more expansive view of your environment. But also you can change your perspective. By clicking on the right stick, you also can see a totally top-down view, an angle you could never see in Link's Awakening. So you're getting multiple different viewpoints in this game. And something else that I think is worth noting. Whenever you speak to a character, the camera zooms in, so you get a much better look at the details, and it looks great. Getting to see the character models and just how everything's put together up close is really nice, because Echoes of Wisdom and Link's Awakening are pretty games. Just Echoes of Wisdom gives us more opportunity to see just how pretty it is. But while there is a lot more going on in terms of the camera perspectives and zooming in and panning out, and then of course the speed at which you can move about the environment, everything that's going on with the different gameplay mechanics, as well as the overall improved variety to the game world, this does appear to have come at somewhat of a cost. Many have remarked on how the frame rate issues in Link's Awakening seem to have gone worse in Echoes of Wisdom. And as pointed out by Digital Foundry here, the frame rate is targeting 60 frames per second, but shoots down to 30 with great frequency. And essentially what's been noticed is that as you're moving about the overworld, the game cannot hold 60. But I'd also like to point out the analysis from Nintendo Dual World here. Their whole video, along with Digital Foundry's own assessment on this, will be linked in the description below. But what you might be noticing here is that when you are consistently moving around in these environments, the game is just staying at 30 until you stop moving. And so what's interesting about this, while the frame jumps can be jarring, and for some people it may be more than just a slight negative impact on their experience, if you just continue moving about without stopping, it's a consistent 30, even though the game is technically targeting 60. And so this does kind of have us wondering, why didn't they just cap the game at 30? Had they done that, there wouldn't have been these jarring frame jumps, and many people would have likely have viewed the game as better. But something I'd like to speak on here is that while that may be the case objectively, I also do think that if the game didn't go for 60, there certainly would have been negative conversation. There certainly would have been people saying, well, Link's Awakening ran at 60, they should have made this one run at 60 as well too. Now, I don't think those conversations should be the reason why Grezzo and the Zelda team should decide to ultimately make Echoes of Wisdom shoot for 60 and not really do it all the time. But I just think it's something that's worth talking about here, because I think regardless of what decision they would have made, there definitely would have been some negative talk. And personally, I'll just say that I like that overall it seems like most Zelda releases during the Switch era are targeting 60 outside of Breath and Tears. And this gives me some optimism that, say on Switch 2, that most, if not all, Zelda games will be running at 60 and hopefully a lockdown clean 60, not jumping between 30 and 60 because of this whole double VSync buffer issue that's going on. I mean, we did hear about from the Gamescom tech demo last year that they were showing off Breath of the Wild running on hypothetical Switch 2 specs at 4K 60 with next to no load times. So I think there is a future for even open-air Zelda where something like this might be possible on Switch 2. But we're talking about Echoes of Wisdom, a 2D top-down Zelda game on Switch 1. And so this is the situation. As I've been playing the game so far, I really don't feel like it's been that much of an issue, likely because I'm consistently moving around all the time, so I don't notice the jarring jump as often. But before I close out here, I'd just like to mention a couple other cool things I noticed about Echoes of Wisdom. In the first town you discover, there's a house that has smoke coming out of the chimney. It's a nice, cool looking smoke effect that I didn't really see anything like in Link's Awakening. When I was playing through Link's Awakening just a little bit to find some similar things, I did notice that you do have smoke from the bomb explosions, and I wondered, did they change around some of the smoke mechanics? But when looking at bomb explosions in Echoes of Wisdom, they look to be about the same. So this chimney effect is just a unique effect for this particular area, and it looks good. And something else I'd like to discuss is just how lighting works in this game. Because there are so many different items you can use to create different forms of light, you have more opportunity to see the light affect different parts of the environment. Because technically there was some of these effects in Link's Awakening, like you see me here casting fire, if you look carefully you'll still see the fire cast light on the wall or enemies. But because it happens so quickly, it's really not that noticeable. But looking here at Echoes of Wisdom, I'm inside this River Zora house, and what you'll see as I walk around the house, you can see the light bouncing off this little fire enemy across the entire room. It's very noticeable, but in a good way. And even here you can see the light bouncing off the water as well. It's a pretty cool effect that you can't really see much of in something like Link's Awakening, but in Echoes of Wisdom, there's plenty of opportunity to see this diversity to the visuals. Now I will point out that you don't see the lighting from the fire hit the water under the wooden floor. And really, this is an extremely minor nitpick. I overall like the effects that are going on in Echoes of Wisdom. I mean, I just think this is a very pretty game for what it is. I'm enjoying the experience, not just visually, but gameplay-wise, and I like what they're doing here. But what do you think? What do you make of the visuals and the presentation and overall diversity of Echoes of Wisdom in comparison to Link's Awakening? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.